Hello again, everybody. We are back in some comfortable new surroundings here for our prep preview show. And we're going to look at, it's week 4 in high school football. As with me, as always, is Randy Kindred.
How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. Joe Deacon here.
Studio J.
Yeah, today. I like it. Pretty nice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the chairs are nice.
Indeed.
Great.
Nice little backdrop even.
Yeah.
So we're going to look right off the bat. The big game of the week is the Unit 5 rivalry between Normal West and Normal Community High Schools. So it's an interesting tilt as always.
Yeah, it could be a real shootout. I mean, both of them were capable of scoring a lot of points. I know last week turnovers were a problem, especially for Normal Community. They just couldn't get over the hump against Peoria and Notre Dame because of turnovers. I think they had 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be another wet Friday night, so that obviously could play a big factor in who wins the game.
Yeah, I just went out to practice for both teams, talked to the coaches and the quarterbacks, and they're all amped up. They all said they want to focus on their own things. Normal West, coming off of their first victory this season, they shut out Champaign Centennial, which was good for a defense that had been kind of struggling.
Yeah, the defense needed something good to happen to them, and that did. I mean, they had a couple of rough outings, and then to post a shutout, I don't care what the conditions. I mean, that's a pretty good feather in their cap. So.
Yeah, Normal West quarterback Peyton Dillingham is leading the area in passing, obviously keyed by those first 2 big games.
Yeah, I think, what was it, he only had like 2 out of 11 or something last week. They just couldn't throw the ball because it was so wet
and foggy too.
But yeah, I think if the weather's halfway decent, I mean, he and Grant Price could put on a pretty good show.
Yeah, and even if it's not a passing game, again, you've got a couple of strong tailbacks in Varshawn Dixon for the Ironmen and Genesis Forrest for the Wildcats.
Yeah. Did you have to run any laps?
I did not. Luckily, it was a little warm for me to be doing too much out there. But both coaches excited for the rivalry. Now, Normal Community has won 3 in a row, so their senior class has a chance to go out unbeaten against West.
Yeah.
But again, West Temple says they don't want to focus on anything in the past. They just want to focus on one game at a time.
Yeah,
and Darren said the same thing.
That's right. I mean, what happened last year or the year before, it really won't matter once the ball's in the air tomorrow night.
Yeah. So the getting away from the inner city a little bit first, we're going to look at a big Heart of Illinois game, and it's the Deer CreekMackinaw is off to an unbelievable start, 3-0, and they haven't allowed a point yet this year.
Yeah. We've got a feature story on them on their defense going in Friday's print edition. They're the only team in the state that hasn't allowed a point yet. So obviously they're doing, and I think it was a product of. They put a lot of emphasis on it in the off season. They scored a lot of points last year, but they also gave up a lot of points. And now this year they've been able to continue to score, but they're stopping teams obviously.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before. It's obviously a very strong program. They've got 20 seniors, I believe it said.
Yeah, which is an amazing total for a school that size. I think you might see that at a bigger school, but for that conference and that size, I think 20 seniors is probably a lot.
And with their offense, the way they run the ball constantly, and Jared Reese again leading the area in rushing, and if you can get any form of defense, they should be in pretty good shape for DMAC.
Yeah, and Tyler Russell for EPG has been terrific so far. I mean, they've played awfully well in their own right, and that should be a real hard-fought, physical game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to overlook EPG. They're obviously a very talented team. Both teams come into the game ranked, so it's going to be key for the large division in the HOIC, especially with Tri-Valley as good as they are too.
That's right, yeah.
So coming back to the inner city now, some non-conference games for all 3 of the other teams. Central Catholic plays Olympia, which is a Corn Belt game actually. Yeah. But non-conference games is Bloomington's facing Rantoul, and U-High is going to Quincy Notre Dame. Some 3 kind of interesting games there.
Yeah. Central Catholic obviously has figured some things out after the opening loss to Tri-Valley. They've won 2 in a row and had a real nice win last week, coming from behind in the 4th quarter to win at LaSalle, Peru. And meanwhile, the Spartans have just struggled to score more than anything. I mean, I think they've had 12 points and 2 touchdowns, I think, maybe all year. So that'll be the big thing for them, just figuring out a way to move the ball. Yeah,
and quarterback for the Saints, quarterback Max Mays has really found a good rhythm with Bobby Brady now. They seem to have their offense kind of moving.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks especially, those 2 have, I know they had 2 touchdown connections last week, and the conditions were not ideal there either, I don't think. So that's a pretty good combo.
We mentioned BHS with the non-conference game. The Raiders coming off a nice win over in Champaign over Central.
Yeah, Yeah, that was a huge win for them. I think they were coming off a disappointing loss to Normal Community, and to go on the road like that, and they had to persevere. I think through a lightning delay, and you know they really, that was a big win. I think, and Kerry Lockhart continues to be terrific as a tailback for them.
Yeah, he was all over the game. In fact, after the lightning delay, as I kind of mentioned, they come out and drew up a tailback pass for him that worked for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And he also had what would have been a long reception that could have gone for a touchdown, but he got tripped up at the very end.
And
so
he had an 85-yard touchdown run.
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. So he was all over the place, and just an all. And then Dominic Curdell, yes, yeah. He had a couple of big touchdowns in the second half that really pulled them away.
Rantoul has struggled, I know, so far. They're 0-3, and they played Taylorville last week, who's ranked in the state, so that was obviously a tough opponent. But they're struggling to get things going really too.
Yeah, and looking at the Pioneers now, they're coming off the first win for Coach Von B.
That's right.
For Trevor Von Breckenheim.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know much about Quincy Notre Dame. I know you kind of looked into them a little bit.
Yeah, they're 1-2. They won their opener over Hannibal, Missouri, but then they lost at St. Joseph Ogden 41-20, which obviously that's a good program. And then they lost to Morris last week, which is ranked, I think, in 8th in the 5A poll. 48-7. So they played a couple of pretty good teams back to back. It'll be interesting to see. I know one thing I saw in the preseason preview on them is they have the least number of players that they've had in like 20 years.
Wow.
And part of that is just, I think, a trend in football. It's getting harder and harder to keep your numbers up. But yeah, that's played a role, I think, in them trying to. I think they've really struggled. It sounds like to run the ball, which usually they can do that pretty well.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see what the Pioneers can do coming off of a win, to get their offense on track and with Doug Holmes and see them respond after getting the first victory.
Yeah, I think getting that first win was big for their confidence. I think they needed that, and so we'll see if they can follow it up with another good performance.
Back over in the heart of Illinois, we'll move to the small school division for a second here, where it's Leroy and Gibson City, Melvin Sibley, and always a heated tilt.
Yeah, that'll be a good game. Leroy's coming off a 35-0 loss to Tri-Valley, which there's no shame in that. Tri-Valley's been terrific so far. They're ranked number 1 in 2A. GCMS is coming off a real tough 22-20 overtime loss to EPG. That both of those games had long lightning delays and that kind of thing, and hopefully we won't be in for any of that tomorrow night. But this could be a really good game, I think. GCMS, their other loss was to PBL, which is a very good 3A team. So I think it'll be a good matchup. Yeah,
and then you mentioned conditions. I noticed when I was out at the football practices, the teams I saw were dunking the balls in water and doing hurry-up kickoffs and all that to make sure they could, again, in case conditions get bad again tomorrow night, they want to be able to make sure they're holding on to that ball.
Yeah, those coaches think everything.
They do, apparently. I wouldn't have thought of that.
They're smarter than sports writers.
For sure. That's not saying a whole lot to us. Yeah, but then again, a few other games of note. Eureka, I believe they're going to be at Fieldcrest. That could be interesting.
Yeah, that could be a good game.
We mentioned Tri-Valley, obviously, still very good. They're rolling along. They're going to be at home against Ridgeview Lexington again.
Yeah.
For them, it's just a matter of, I guess, maintaining consistency and health.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've obviously shown a lot already, both sides of the ball, that they're, anybody who thought they were going to be taking a step down after that state title last year, I don't think they have.
And they may have gotten better.
They might have.
And Pontiac is going to Muhammad Seymour again. This is the last year in the Corn Belt for Muhammad, so
yeah.
This will be the last conference meeting between those two. And looking at a couple other area games, not a ton on the schedule. Let's see, Dwight. I think Dwight actually played pretty well so far this season.
Yeah,
hosting Clifton Central.
Yeah, that's and that could be a big game for them if they could get to 3-1 and get off to a good start. I mean, they might be looking at the playoffs.
Yeah. And looking at the playoffs. Another team looking at the playoffs is in baseball tonight. The Cubs with a chance to clinch the division.
As we're taping this,
yeah,
they could wrap it up tonight either with a win there, or if the Cardinals lose out in San Francisco, which either one could easily happen.
And a quick mention of college football. ISU now coming back off the win off Northwestern, home for family weekend.
Yeah,
should be a big game.
That was a terrific win for them, and again, the games against Eastern Illinois always seem to be really terrific games, and a lot of them go right down to the wire, and I think this one could too.
So that's going to be our preview for this weekend in football, and we've got all the games coming up tomorrow night. Be sure to watch all our coverage on Panagraph.com and in our Saturday morning section, and just keep following. We'll be back along on the way. Have a good night.